her sister, and she's like, imagine the pictures you can show, like, take some pictures to throw in his face. But at that point, Lisa, well, I suppose Lisa is trying to get him back, so she's trying to prove that she isn't boring.
Right.
So I don't think it would work. I think if they went on this trip and they came back, you'd be like, well, okay, you went on some touristy shark thing. Good for you. You're still boring in my eyes. You're better off without me. I'm a horrible person. I'm not even in this film.
It did cross my mind thinking about this, that I could see a version of this movie. And, you know, maybe when this came out, it was slightly less relevant in 2017 than it would be now. But I could see a version of this movie where, you know, some Instagram influencers are in this scenario.
Yes.
And they do it for the gram. Like, I can see that being a huge motivator to, like, do something ill-advised for your, like, YouTube followers or, like, other type of followers.
I would be surprised if that hasn't happened yet. I can't think of any particular films where that's the case. Well, okay, Deep Blue Sea 3 is all about a blog. It's about Waterblog. The name of the blog is called Waterblog. Scooting straight past that. That's a big issue I have. Deep Blue Sea 3, great film. Terrible name for the site. So that's about this
Waterblog.
Right. It's about a kind of ocean conservationist blog where they go to this place that's got a reef with sharks and things like that.
That's at least more of a righteous thing.
That's just the closest I can think of, because it's and there's no like, okay, we've got to go and do this because it'll make lots of hits on the. Actually, there is a character in it, Spin is his name. He's like, because there's an early altercation between the lead, Emma. Oh, it's been a long time since I talked about Deep Blue Sea 3. I got Tanya Ramon's character, Emma. Dr. Emma Collins. There we go. She has an altercation with the Great White Shark, Sally, Great White Sally. And they're filming it, and so Spin, who's like the media guy, is, they'll get so many views on this, it's going to go viral. Just because a shark rammed into her in a little fight underwater. Everyone survived, everyone's fine. So that's
I can hear the excitement in your voice right now.
I mean, we did 11 consecutive episodes on Deep Blue Sea 3, which is a really good film.
Speaking of Deep Blue Sea, I was like, Jay is really going to appreciate how deep and blue the sea looks in this movie.
Well, I mean, that is a feature we will get to later in the podcast, is quite how deep and blue this film is. But I got to say early on, the fact that every scene in this film, they tell me exactly how deep they are at any given moment, is a chef's kiss. That makes my work here so much easier. There's no like, so they went down a level, but the aquatic has sunk a little bit. Hang on, let me put up a ruler to my screen and measure exactly how deep they are. which I've done. So this time around, no need. It's in the title how deep they are. It's fantastic.
No wonder you enjoyed it so much. You also probably were like so excited that it was in meters.
Yep. Well, I mean, everything should be. But yes, very much so. I've always been surprised that it came out as 47 meters down and not, I don't know, about 150 feet down. So I'm happy about that. Anyway.
Yeah, I did look up the conversion and it's 51-ish yards. So I don't think 51 yards down has quite the ring of 47 meters down.
154 feet and a couple of inches down doesn't really have the ring.
On the other hand, I think the whole 9 yards has a better ring to it than the whole 9 meters.
Absolutely true. Yes. Well, again, because that's where did that saying come from? Because the whole 9 yards is the saying in the UK as well. I suppose we used to do yards and feet and everything back in the past.
Yeah, it's a football thing.
Yeah,
American football thing.
Thank you. It's a rugby thing.
You just wouldn't understand.
No, I wouldn't want to. So they go out on the boat, and the two guys kind of prove that the cage works to the women first. And they go in, they go out, it's fine. And then Kate and Lisa go in. They're having a good time down there. We get... Actually, there's quite a lot of useful exposition. When they get about to go down, Captain Matthew Modine explains to Lisa he fully knows that she cannot scuba dive because she's like he says check your air. She doesn't know how to do it, so he gives her a full step by step of how to do everything. tilt your head back, equalize your pressure, don't come straight up, you get the bends. They reiterate you'll get the bends 20 times in this film to explain why they don't just swim out. So I appreciated the first half of those. They did a few too many times for my liking, but I think they did. It was decent exposition, decent explanation of the situation they were in.
I think they could just foresee audience members being like, just swim up. Just get up there.
Why don't they just swim out? Stupid. Just watch any 5 minutes of the film and they will tell you why. So they go down and it's all nice. The shark's down there. They're borrowing the camera from the guys. And the guys are like, if you drop the camera, you got to go down and get it. What do you know? They drop the camera. And out of nowhere, shark swims up and eats it. Great. Fantastic. I didn't see the shark coming. I thought, that's my first successful jump scare from the film. It worked very well for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure that was tasty for the shark too.
Yes. Plastic.
Basically like the equivalent of us eating a SIM card.
Yep. But I think the CGI on the sharks is actually it's decent. I don't think there's any real sharks or any models or anything. I think it is entirely CGI. I've not properly looked into the making of because I watched this on Netflix and they didn't have the making of.
Yeah,
but the fact
I feel like the way the sharks are moving and the way it's shot, it doesn't really necessitate too much of a close up where you would prefer a model necessarily. Yeah. I mean, I'm always a fan of practical effects, but I just don't know if that would have necessarily done much for the way this movie was made.
Yes, I agree. And the fact that so much of it is shot so far down so it is a bit murkier, there's bits of silt flying around and stuff, means you can hide some of the seams effects-wise, so it doesn't have to look photorealistic every second. It's all everything's kind of shot with through that underwater haze. So Lisa decides she's had enough. The kind of the cage drops a little bit. She gets a bit scared, so she wants to get out. And so they start to lift the cage up. And just as it crests through the surface, just as they're about to get out, it all goes to hell. The winch breaks, and they plummet to the bottom of the sea, which is terrifying. Mm-hmm. We know it's coming. We know it's the central conceit of the film. But down they go, and the winch falls down on top of them and lands on the door to the cage. As if it wasn't bad enough being stuck down there, they also can't get out of the cage. Horrendous.
Yeah, just like the worst case scenario.
Yes, absolutely.
I guess unless it was like 60 meters in that spot. I did look up how long a average scuba tank is supposed to give a diver oxygen, and it said about 45 minutes, but presumably that's when they are very calm and not freaking out and screaming Lisa and Kate every 5 seconds. When
they're just kind of swimming around gently, exploring. So the industry standard depth for recreational scuba diving is 130 feet, which is about 39 meters. So they're a little bit below that. Not hugely below. So I think it's within a region, within range even. So that's fine. It's not like they're 200 meters down. They're fine. So cage lands, they're trapped. Lisa's having a nosebleed inside her scuba mask, which bloody hell.
Oh god.
If you thought it was bad already. That's not a big plot point, that's just something I noticed. I was like, no thank you. And so they have to get out. They've got a little radio, but they're too far out of range. So Kate decides she can fit through the bars, but she has to take off her oxygen mask to do so, which leads to that she has to take her mask off, then put the mask back on again underwater. That doesn't work. She's dead. Which, Jesus. But so that's a very, very tense scene. Great scene. A lot of very tense scenes. This is a film full of very, very tense scenes. I mentioned that in order to do this, she goes out of the cage legs first and just floating there kicking for seemed like half an hour. Way too long. But she gets out. She manages to move the winch. I love the metallic clang of the winch arm. Is a real nice sound effect going on there. And then there's kind of no sharks. Oh, there's been no sharks for a while. I got a bit of a Paranormal Activity vibe from this, where there's just kind of some slight bouts of not inactivity, but just the threat isn't here. It could be anywhere, and then it just kind of pops out from nowhere.
Right.
Which was very effective. Worked very well. So Kate swims up with the radio. She works out that if she goes up to 40 meters deep, then she's in range of the surface. And the captain's like, "Well, go back down. Get in the cage. The sharks, stupid." And he's going to send. This is what it sucks about the situation, because the only safe place is the cage, and that's at the bottom of the. I know this is obvious. That's at the bottom of the sea, and they've got limited air. So it really is a real rock and a hard place kind of situation. Of do you try and swim out with the sharks, or do you stay down here and drown? So it's just a fantastic, simple premise. It's so good.
Yeah.
Sorry to keep reiterating that. I'm just I'm just impressed with the premise.
It bears repeating.
Because so many films they overcomplicate things. You don't need to. Just do this simple thing.
A lot of reviewers on Letterboxd could stand to hear this episode and lighten up a little bit.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, on IMDb, it's only got where's it got, 5.7, which, to be fair, Deep Blue Sea has a 5.9, so it almost has a perfect score. I assume it's out of 5.9, because why wouldn't it be? So she gets back in the cage, and Javier is coming down with a second winch. And this is when they have the debate of, was there a second winch? They hear a noise, it's the boat going, and it's all still very tense. And when they're down there, they say, this was a nice call forward for later in the film. What would Stuart say if he was here? It's like, Stuart would lose his mind. And so, later in the film, that might happen to somebody. Who knows? Well, and earlier Kate said that she could stay down here forever. Okay, I see what you're doing, script. I watched this once, and I've circled back around to watch it again. I've seen this film twice already. Which only happens to the ones that I enjoy. Shark Night I watched once.
Yeah, I can see that.
You said earlier that you were happy you didn't steer me wrong. That's the only time I've been steered wrong so far, is Shark Night. And that was my co-host steering me wrong, goddammit.
You can't trust everything he says.
I trust very little that he says. If he'd told me there was a music video at the end of that film, I would not have believed him. That is a lie he's said before about other films. So they see a light in the distance, and they think that it's a torch or a flashlight. Lisa's low on air. Kate, Mandy Moore has more. No, sorry, other way around. Kate's low on air. Lisa, Mandy Moore, she has more air, so she goes to investigate. And this leads her just to leave the cage, sticks close to the ground. But then there's this chasm, there's this void that is horrifying. Just to have to think about going out over this just empty wasteland of nothing, aiming for this little light in the distance. But she does.
Yeah, it's similar to in a space movie where people have to briefly navigate outside of the spaceship, and you're kind of freaking out the whole time that something's going to go awry, or they're going to get pulled out into the deep space or something.
But fortunately she makes it to the light. Javier is nowhere to be seen. She tries to come back, has no idea which direction to go, just kind of picks a direction. Turns out she makes a good decision, she goes the right way. It's making me and my wife Aisha very, very anxious. I mean, we know there's an hour of the film left at this point, so it's not 45 minutes. So it's not over. She's going to get back, but right. Still. And then she finds did she find Javier dead, or does she find Javier alive and he dies? I can't remember.
She finds him alive, and then he immediately dies.
Okay. Good. Didn't like that guy. Glad that he died. I mean, yes, he was trying to help them. Fine, good for him. But if I was going to pick anyone in the cast so far to die, he would be my number one choice. So
yes.
So Javier dies, and Lisa's like, "Well, I need to go back to the cage." So she gets back.
The times where they are trying to find the cage again are almost more terrifying to me than when the sharks are around, because it's so murky and hard to see in the distance that just the idea of getting separated and never trying to swim in a certain direction and going the wrong way and just never finding your way back is such a terrifying idea.
Yeah, because there is a lot of ocean out there. and very easy to go the wrong way. So that's it. Yeah. So when she found Javier, she got the